Today we will start cutting out your shapes for your Collagraph print. Last week we started with 4 thumbnail sketches of 4 different designs you could use, and then we did a rough draft where you chose one of these and you drew it again, but bigger with a little more detail. Make sure you've submitted a picture of both of those assignments. We are now moving on to actually building your Collagraph block on your cardboard. Now, my in-person people, their piece that they are starting with, their base, is 6 by 10. My at-home people, if you can find a piece that's this size, 6 inches by 10 inches, that's awesome. If not, 6 by 9 would be fine. If you'd rather make yours more of a square, then you could go with a 7 by 7 inches or an 8 by 8 inches. These are all good sizes for you to potentially go with. If it's too small, then when we do a rubbing on a piece of printer paper, then it's going to be a tiny little thing on this big paper. So these are good sizes to work with. Now, here's my rough draft. So this is what I am trying to put onto here. My first step, a really good idea, is to at least sketch out your design onto your chipboard before you start cutting out your shapes. This will give you a good idea of what size each of your shapes should be when you cut them out of your other pieces of cardboard. So I've got my cereal box here. I'm gonna cut out all of my shapes on this, and we're gonna add them on here. So I'm gonna need some scissors, and I'm gonna need some glue. Okay, so I have drawn mine all out onto my chipboard. I made a couple of changes, did you notice? So after I made my rough draft, I decided I didn't like how lonely this circle was, and I thought about adding some circles. So I added 2 more circles. Now I have 3, and I like that better. So if you make changes to yours, just know that there's nothing wrong with that. Your artwork should be evolving as you're working on it. So now this piece of chipboard is my base. All of my other pieces are going to get glued on top. So I need to make those. Here is my cereal box. Now, if you want to try to get fancy and do something where you trace your shape onto the paper and cut it out of the paper and then hold that over here and trace it, you could probably do something like that. But I am going to just freehand all of this. And I've got one triangle that I'm going to start with that is this one right here. And I know that when I'm starting it with it, that it needs to go from this side of the chipboard, and it's going to end about right there. And so that gives me a good idea of what size that triangle should be. Now my chipboard makes a really great straight edge. I don't need a ruler, I just need something with a straight edge to be able to make that line. Boom, there's my first triangle. Now I'll be able to cut this out and put it here. I'm gonna cut this curved part out after I make my circle for all 3 of these pieces, I've decided. And so my next piece is this one right here. And so I'm actually gonna put it right up against the first one. And it's gonna go from here to here. And then from here to there. Same thing with my straight edge. There we go. And now I've got my first 2 pieces to cut out. Alrighty. Here's my first few pieces. Let's see how they fit. Beautiful. That one's a little bit too long. This one looks pretty good. And then this little guy is definitely too long. So I wouldn't glue your pieces until you have made sure that they are exactly the size that you need them to be. So I'm going to scooch this one down, line it up exactly where I want it to be, And now I can see where I'm going to trim it so that it's not so long. And I'm going to do the same with my other two pieces. This one's actually fine. It'll go right there. This one is here. So that's where I'm going to trim this one. My suggestion for all of you is to get your hands on a big enough Ziploc bag that you can keep all of your pieces in there without them getting lost. Because I really like having all of my pieces already finished before I glue them on at all. And so if you keep a big Ziploc bag around, then you can keep your pieces in there, because these three are awesome and I'm going to need them and I don't want to lose them. They're going to go in my bag. And now I'm ready to start cutting out some of my other ones. Today, you are probably not actually going to use that glue yet. That might be tomorrow or the next day. But today I want you to focus on trying to start your first few shapes that you're going to eventually glue on. And then we'll move on to some gluing tomorrow. That's what I'll be demonstrating. Your to-do list today is first to make a base for your block. You need to have something that you're going to start with to glue everything onto. The sizes that work best are going to be 6x10 or a 6x9, an 8x8 will work fine too. Any of those sizes. Once you have cut a base piece out, your next step is to draw your design onto the base piece. This is going to help give you an idea of what size each of your pieces needs to be once you cut them out. And then that's step 3, to start drawing your shapes again on a separate piece and then cutting them out, like I did in the video before. Don't lose your pieces. I will show you some tips for gluing tomorrow.